In tonight's cover story, one-on-one with a Pulitzer Prize-winning author. Northwestern graduate Robert Samuels co-authored an acclaimed book on the life of George Floyd.
Tonight, our Mike Lowe sits down with him in his college classroom to discuss what we've learned and what we haven't in the 3 years since Floyd's murder sparked a worldwide movement.
Everyone walking down a street, no matter how they look, has a story.
Northwestern graduate Robert Samuels is back in his college classroom.
What is it like for you to be back here at Fisk Hall at Northwestern University, where you learned the skills of a journalist?
Yeah, it's so surreal. And I didn't really think about how much it would hit me until I walked through the doors.
But this time, it's his own book providing the lesson.
I also remember Fisk Hall sort of kind of had a smell to it. It's just like...
He returned to the Evanston campus for the first time since graduating in 2006 with a new title.
Yeah.
Pulitzer Prize-winning author.
What was it like when you got the call that you had won?
I don't think I knew I could cry happy tears, but I was so elated.
While at Northwestern, he was the editor of a quarterly magazine called Blackboard, and then he became the editor-in-chief of the Daily Northwestern.
How did your time at Northwestern and in the Chicago area kind of shape your views?
Oh my gosh, and there are so many ways. So one of the reasons I wanted to come to Northwestern is because I grew up in the Bronx and I had never spent any time in the Midwest, and I thought that would be a good thing for me. And a lot of the conversations that I used to have with people on campus were about race and racism.
Those experiences informed the more than 400 interviews conducted over 6 months, which became the book His Name is George Floyd, One Man's Life and the Struggle for Racial Justice, co-authored with his one-time Washington Post colleague, Tolu Olorunipa. Both were in Chicago for the Printers Row Lit Fest recently. It's been more than 3 years since the murder of George Floyd inflamed the nation and sparked the largest racial justice protests in a half-century.
Mama! Get up! Get in the car right!
The entire world knows about the final 8 minutes and 46 seconds of George Floyd's life. The entire world knows next to nothing about the 46 years that preceded that. Why did you think it was important to give such a detailed account of his life?
We just wanted to do our part in helping the country better understand George Floyd and to better understand systemic racism.
He was this really big guy, 6'6", but he was self-conscious about that.
He didn't want people to perceive him as a threat. And when you talk to people, they would say sometimes you'd sort of see him shrink into himself, that he wanted to make himself smaller because he felt very imprisoned just by the nature of the body he had built.
He was also a person, and this is documented in great detail throughout the book, who tried to spread love at basically every chance he could get, whether it was telling his friends, "I love you," explicitly telling them that, texting them that, or sending flowers for no reason. Yeah. These are things that we don't typically think about George Floyd.
No, I mean, I think when people found out that he had a police record, we stopped asking ourselves the question whether or not he was a good person or why he might have had the record.
I'm sorry.
Let me see your other hand.
Please, Mazzotti.
Both hands.
Do nothing.
Put your hands up right now.
Floyd did indeed have a police record.
Please, don't shoot me, man.
Step out and face away.
Can you not shoot me, man?
I'm not shooting you. Step out and face away.
Okay.
8 criminal convictions in 8 years for drug possession, theft, and trespassing.
How did you approach that part of his life?
Honestly. And as journalists, we believe that we seek the truth, we report it fully, and we talk to everybody who knows anything about the situation. So maybe he wasn't a saint. And we came into this project thinking that maybe we'd have to write about that.
In 2007, Floyd pleaded guilty to an aggravated robbery inside of a home. He served 4 years in prison, but the situation is more complicated than what is written in the police report. The book reveals that Floyd maintained his innocence, but pleaded guilty, fearing a far worse punishment would result from a trial.
And this is another example of the systems and how these very difficult choices are presented to black men very often, where they may believe they're innocent, but they have a choice between going to trial where they don't believe anybody will believe them, or taking 4 or 5 years in prison.
What were the conditions of the community, and what was the police presence like? That might make a difference in terms of whether a person says they're guilty when they're not.
And in that sense, this is not only a book about George Floyd's life, but it's also a book about all of the systems with which he interacted and the institutions that shaped him.
So we go through the education system, the housing system, the healthcare system, the system of criminal justice, to think about the ways in which George Floyd might have been helped, but ultimately were structured to gear him toward criminality.
And that brings us to the discussion of systemic racism, which is something that was talked about a lot in the immediate aftermath of his death. And then what happened?
Well, we're living it today. As we concluded the writing of this book, we saw people talking about banning books about systemic racism.
The book devotes a chapter to Derek Chauvin, the former Minneapolis police officer who was convicted of second-degree murder in Floyd's killing. It details how Chauvin used the now infamous knee-to-neck restraint at least 9 other times, including on a 14-year-old boy.
I'm not able to give a full formal statement at this time.
Chauvin was also the subject of at least 22 complaints or internal investigations during his more than 19 years as a Minneapolis police officer.
Why wasn't he ever disciplined?
I think that's a question for the Minneapolis Police Department to wrestle with. And I'm not sure they really understand.
And I think the book does a really good job of pointing out how when a complaint is lodged against an officer for excessive force, the mechanism of investigation is so methodical that it takes so long that it's almost like discipline never comes.
And as that continues to happen, police officers feel stronger and stronger and more free to carry out the law in the ways they choose to. And that's what all the evidence shows happened with Derek Chauvin.
Chauvin and Floyd's lives collided at the corner of East 38th Street and Chicago Avenue on May 25th, 2020.
What is it about his death that you think struck a chord?
It gave credence to what so many people had heard about, had heard black people in this country complaining about, but had never seen before, which is this heinous look at a man, an agent of the state, punishing a black man who is pleading for mercy, pleading for his life.
After we finish reading this book, what do you hope that we have learned, not just about George Floyd, but about ourselves?
I hope that people understand that through reading about George Floyd's life, that systemic racism is not an academic concept, nor is it a theoretical concept.
At Northwestern University, Mike Lowe, WGN News.